Fear is one of the most debilitating emotions. Doubt is one of the most debilitating emotions. And if you can clear that with timeline therapy, like in one session, it doesn't take years, it doesn't take weeks, it takes minutes. Because if you're not happy, like happy is supposed to be our homeostasis. But so many of us are used to being in that stress and that anxiety and that fight or flight. We've seen it enough when we do this work that when it gets quiet up here, people are like thinking something's wrong because it's so unfamiliar. The problems are all created from our thought process. And unfortunately, a lot of us are living in our past. Well, the first step is awareness. Pain means pay attention. If there's something in their life that is causing them pain, whether it's their relationship, their job, their health, that means pay attention. And that's the universe saying, hey, maybe we need to shift something here. If you're not going to do it for yourself, if you're a mom or a parent, do it for your children. Because when you heal the trauma that way, guess what? You heal it that way. Because if I don't heal my trauma, guess what? Who's going to take it? My children. Then they're going to deal with it in their lifetime. And if they don't deal with it, that's why then it's going to go to their children.
Welcome to the podcast, Billie.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so nice to have you here and finally see you again.
Yes.
So we met for the first time in person last summer during the training in
This
Canada.
summer, yeah.
Yeah, this summer, yeah.
Feels like forever.
That was hectic times though.
Yes. Sure.
I was going through a training and you were training to become a trainer at the course, and I was under a lot of pressure at least.
Yeah. And you know, when you're learning, you have to go through pressure because that's actually what that is. If we're not under pressure, we're not growing.
That is so true. I think a lot of people are afraid of the pressure and they do everything to avoid it and think that something is wrong if there's a lot of pressure. And then I think it's important to reframe it, because without the pressure, I don't think we really get where we want to get.
No, it's not, it's common knowledge that growth happens outside your comfort zone. So if you are comfortable, nothing is actually shifting.
Yeah.
And I know when I first heard that saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. If you are still using the same operating systems, the same neurology, you're going to get the same results. And unless you push yourself, and that is, I use the analogy when you go to the gym. Literally when you're growing muscles, it's literally tearing it apart and then rebuilding, tearing it apart and rebuilding. How else are you going to grow?
Oh, yeah.
And so when I always tell my clients and our students, growth is 100% always uncomfortable.
Ooh.
And it is never convenient. Always uncomfortable, never convenient. That's what growth is. And so if you can get used to being uncomfortable, then you understand that, okay, I'm growing. Like sometimes now when things start feeling weird or I'm like, oh, something's happening, I actually celebrate it. And I say, oh, that means I must be growing. Something's happening because I'm feeling out of my comfort zone. And I actually celebrate that now as opposed to be run away from it, which is, again, just programming in our brain because it wants to keep us safe that, oh, no, let's just go back to where we were, right? We call that comfortable suffering, victim island. I know this place. It's familiar. I don't know what's out there in the open seas. And my answer to that is, well, why does it have to be scary? Why can't it be exciting? You never know what's out there.
So true. So, Billie, before we dive even deeper into the mind, would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and your story? And I would be really interested in knowing what it was like for you going from, changing your mindset into now that you celebrate challenges and how it was before. And you can start with who are you and where do you live? And,
Yeah. My name's Billie Aadmi. I live in Vancouver, BC, in Canada, in the southwest corner of the country. I have been a police officer for the last 20 years because at the core of me, I wanted to serve. And it was just the ultimate job of service. And ever since I became a mom about almost 10 years ago now, my heart wasn't in it anymore because obviously there's an element of danger. And I still wanted to give back. And I knew that I wanted to do it in a way where I could make more impact and not just on a one-to-one level. And so, now I know when you put things out to the universe usually responds by giving you opportunities. And most of us put our hand because, again, it's like, oh my gosh, there's something new. It's scary. I don't know what it is. And we just say goodbye. And I did that for many years. Obviously, through the pandemic, a lot of the world shifted. I went through my separation through there. I went through a lot of my own darkest times during the pandemic. And it got to that point where I was just like, you know what, universe, like, how'd my life get here? I did everything right. I went to school, I got married, I had the kids, and I was still miserable. I'm like, what? How am I here now? Now I'm a single mom. My marriage is falling apart. I hate my work. Like, what did I do wrong? And that's when those things started creeping in of, well, you're just not worthy. You're not good enough. You're powerless. You're not smart enough. You're not lovable. Like all those self-limiting beliefs started coming in. And that's when I kind of surrendered and said, you know what, universe, show me the way. And that's why I just started following that little voice. I always had that little voice that, Billy, like, just shine your light. Billy, just do this. Like, you're made for more. This is not what you were meant for. You were meant to do way bigger things. And then one thing led to another. I met a hypnotherapist and I was doing a little bit of health coaching on the side. And I said, hey, can you come in and talk to my people? Because I saw that their men's mindsets were all messed up. I was like, okay, you had that body for 40 years. How do you expect to lose 30 pounds in 10 days? Like, what's wrong? Like, there's something's missing. And so I said, can you come and just do some mindset work? And she did. And she gave me a session. And she dove so deep into some of my childhood trauma that I was like, I felt so differently after that one session. And I was like, what just happened? And she's like, well, I tapped into your unconscious mind. I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? What do you mean you tapped into? I literally, this was how new I was to this world. And this was at the beginning of last year.
Yeah.
And I was just floored, Anakin. And I'm like, I don't know what you did, but I just want to know more. I want to learn more. I want to feel more. I want more of that. And I just sent me down this rabbit hole. One thing led to another. And, I met Dr. Kim Redman, and this is where I started this course. Then I just went straight through. I went through a practitioner last May. Then I did master practitioner in June. I did my trainer's training, which you did this summer, where I came back to evaluate. And I literally was like, you know what? I want to go all the way. And ironically, I went to school to be a teacher, even though I never did a teaching career. And now I know why, because this was what I was meant to teach. Yeah. And it is literally, my life has taken a 180 turn since last summer, since I started this work. My policing career, I can retire because I also am a real estate investor on the side. And I got out of my own way when it came to my investing. And this is what the power of mindset shifting. And this just shows you how much we are the ones that limit ourselves, nobody else. So I had several properties here in Vancouver, never considered myself a real estate investor. And I started talking to some people and they're like, Billy, like most people don't even own one property. You own like 5. I was like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, I just thought I was a good mom. I was like, I bought my place and I bought a couple places for my kids, for their future. And I just thought I was being a good mom. Never thought I was a real estate investor. So then again, there's always that gap in skills. Okay, that means I can do something with this. So I learned some courses. I went to some real estate academies. I started meeting, connecting, networking. One thing led to another. Now within 6 months, I'm financially free. Now the money that I used in my investments have now started working for me, so that now I can focus on this work, which is my service to the world. And that is the power of the shift of the mindset, that people are sitting on financial freedom and have no idea, because the programming in their head says, go to school, get a job, work for 40 years, get the pension. And that's their mentality. And once you get out of your way and deprogram that thinking and start looking at your life and saying, hey, I can create whatever I want here. No one says that no one's limiting me except me. And once I open up that world, oh my gosh, Anakin, it's been amazing. And now, as you know, I've just launched my own academy called the Amplify Impact Academy with my training partner, Melissa. And we are just literally living the dream. I mean, that used to be such a cliche thing to say. And now I'm like, I actually am. I love what I do. It's not work. It's my service. I love my life, my kids. I'm still happy as a single mom. And even though I'm calling in, soul partner now with intention. And life is just flowing. And when it's flowing, that means you're on the right path.
It does. I'm so happy to hear that. And hearing you tell your stories, just, it was the same way for me when I first discovered, the power of working with the mindset and the subconscious mind. I was just like, what is this? It's so efficient. It's so powerful. I need to know everything.
It's fast.
It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like you, I'm an eager student wanting to learn more and more and just understand more. And there's still so much more to learn, which makes me happy because I love learning.
Mhm.
And when you were telling your story, I was thinking, okay, so you managed to shift your mindset. And I know there's not one thing that did it, like going from being having a limited mindset, being on victim island, and not seeing that you could actually turn your life around, and now you're financially free. Like, what is your like to the people listening in now? Like, where do they start? Like, okay, the mind will. It's playing tricks on us. It's trying to keep us safe all the time. And for people like it, just even before we met here, Billy, I was coaching someone, and the last thing that came up before I had to leave the call was like, oh, and there's still like, I have this limiting belief that, I can't have the life I want. And I was like, okay, we'll continue with that next time.
Yeah,
So
right.
I'm sure there are a lot of people sitting there going that, oh, I would love to have more freedom. I would love to have a different job or live in a different country or whatever. And I can't because, and then fill in whatever
Mhm.
um, excuse they have. Where do they start? What are your suggestions?
Well, the first step is awareness, right? As you've heard, pain means pay attention. If there's something in their life that is causing them pain, whether it's their relationship, their job, their health, that means pay attention. And that's the universe saying, hey, maybe we need to shift something here. Because if you're not happy, like happy is kind of like supposed to be our homeostasis. But so many of us are used to being in that stress and that anxiety and that fight or flight that we've seen it enough when we do this work that when it gets quiet up here, people are like thinking something's wrong because it's so unfamiliar. And that's how it should be. And when people see when things, because life happens, we can't control life. People say to me, like, Billy, how come that's not getting you all worked up? I'm like, because I know that's not going to help. And it comes down to the thought process. Now, something that we teach is that based on the filters, as you know, like, we shift the filters with timeline therapy. All this information is coming in at us all the time. And based on what those filters are, which are, our values, our belief systems, our meta programs, our memories, our language, it determines what movie plays. And most people, the movie that comes out is a horror show. That's just the programming. It constantly just comes out. We're programmed to look for the negative. We're programmed to, like look at a car accident when we're walking by. Like you can't just help but look at it. And so if you can clear those filters and heal some of that trauma and those unresolved emotions and get rid of those limiting beliefs, then the movie that automatically comes out is the love story because it's a choice. And our new mentor that we're working with, he talks about something called the three principles, and it's mind, consciousness, and thought. And thought is literally what's creating our reality. And so when I said the first step is awareness, you have to be aware of what thought processes are you having. And that's why one of the tasks that we give right away is anytime you hear a negative thought come through your head, think of a stop sign. And people don't realize how much they put the stop sign up. And they're like, holy crap, I had no idea I was thinking this negatively. So that's the first step, awareness, right? Because if you don't actually have the awareness that this is a problem, then there's nothing you can't take the next step, right? And the next step is the choice, the client's journey. The next step is the choice. Now, most people, because again, growth is uncomfortable and it's scary, and oh my gosh, it sounds like a lot of hard work, they just go back to the pain. And then they go through this loop. And it's like this, you have to have this level of commitment that no matter what happens, that's it. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back to victim island. I'm done being there. I'm done at being at the effective life that, oh, because I was born in this family, this is why it is. Oh, because I have this marriage, because of this. That's being at the effective life. Like life is happening to you. When you're over here on Solution City, life is happening for you. And that's why we always ask ourselves when sometimes life throws you a curveball, because guess what? Opportunity to learn, opportunity to grow. And if you can look at it by saying, that sucks. Yes, we honor that whatever's happening sucks, right? We're not going to ignore it. Yeah, it sucks. And what am I meant to learn here? What is the universe trying to show me here? And if you can look at it from that point of view, then you're on Solution City. where, I always joke that the restaurants are better. There's like amusement parks. It's a lot more fun over here, right? And sometimes life will take you back to Victim Island. It's okay as long as you know how to get back and then be in the power of your life as opposed to the victim of your life. Then you can find the solutions, because without a problem, there wouldn't be a solution. And without a solution, there is no problem. And so the problems are all created from our thought process. And unfortunately, a lot of us are living in our past and we're living in that trauma.
Billy, I just love that. Our problems are created from our thought processes.
Absolutely.
That is so huge. And I hope everybody listening can just like write that down, remember it, and just like, we create our own problems.
Absolutely.
Continue.
It is not a problem unless we actually think it's a problem.
Yeah.
And we all think things because it's a programming that's a problem. And if we can think that, no, it's not a problem, it's something that requires some solutions. And if we sit in the story of it, and this is where the story gets created, oh, because this happened, that means this. Oh, because that happened must mean I'm not this or I'm not whatever. That's Victim Island. And that's where our thought process takes over for the negative. And I love using the analogy of like a taxi stand, because our thoughts are transient, right? We can't control our thoughts. It's impossible unless you're like a comatose and you don't have thoughts. And even then you're still semi-conscious, right? Think of the thoughts as you're standing at a taxi stand. And if the cab comes over that says fear on it, that's a thought, and you get into that cab, guess what? It's going to be a scary ride. Or you can choose not to get into that cab and it'll just drive off into the horizon. Now, if the next cab that pulls up to the taxi stand is the stress cab, it's not going to be a very fun ride if you get in that cab. So if you can just let those thoughts come and go, nothing will actually stick. If the cab that comes in says, oh, like happy cab, sure, get in that one and go in there for a while. It'll be a nice ride. We have the power and the choice to decide which thoughts we want to entertain. Because if we don't think of that thought, because again, we can think of lots of negative thoughts, right? We all have trauma. We all have negative things happening. However, when we think about it, we bring it back into the now. Because the past doesn't exist anymore. And so a lot of the therapies and the people that go back, well, let's go talk about what happened to you when you were 3 years old. No, we don't have to. We don't have to. The unconscious mind already knows what happened. If it's still bothering you, that just means the lessons weren't uploaded. So let's go back, use timeline therapy, go back to the root cause, upload the positive learnings, let it go, and now move on. It doesn't have to be complicated. The problem, Anakin, is that a lot of people have an identity around their problems. And that's where people have to really make that commitment again to choose that that's not me. Because that happened to me doesn't decide who I get to be today. And trust me, I have enough trauma to last a lifetime that I was sitting on Victim Island. I joke, I'm like, I used to invite the girlfriends over for margaritas and be like, come on over and listen to my woe story. And I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe that. I'm such a good person. Why did this happen? And what did it do? Kept me there.
Yeah.
And then it lowered my energy. It lowered my frequency. And now where I'm over here, my frequency is higher. And guess what? Now I'm just attracting more, because that's the whole law of attraction. You think shit, guess what? You're going to get some shit. If you think happy, happy thoughts or crappy thoughts. We have a choice. If you think, I have this other analogy that my mentor shared with me, that if you think of a waterfall, those are our thoughts. They're just coming. And some of the thoughts that come down the ocean or the little river, they look like those little poop emojis, right? They're crappy thoughts. Mm-hmm. Some of them look like little flowers. You have the choice to not bend over and pick up the poop and actually smell it.
That's
right?
so true.
It's true. You can just let it go and maybe pick up the nice flower one and smell the flower, the beautiful flower, the lily. But why do you have to pick up the poopy one?
Yeah.
And then smell it and be like, oh, yeah, that's a crappy thought. And then just harp on it and just keep smelling it and smelling it. Put it back down and just let it go. It's just a thought. It has no power until you give it power.
That is
simple.
so true.
It is so simple, yet it's such a hard concept for people to understand, because their programming says, well, why can't I? How can I not think of that?
Yeah. It
would be saying, like, right now, Anakin, don't think of a blue tree. What's going to happen? You're going to think of a blue tree.
Yeah.
Now, and I'll just say, think of a green tree. And then you'll switch your thought to think of a green tree. And that's as simple as it is.
It is. Oh, that's so true. And Billy, let's dive deeper into the unconscious mind and timeline therapy and the way we have thought about trauma and therapy before. Because the way like things have worked in this world is that, okay, if you have some trauma, whatever, you need to go to therapy for 30 years and talk about it and talk about it. And that's not true, is it?
No, no. Oh God, no. I mean, it comes down to you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And as you know, one of the presuppositions of NLP, everybody's doing the best they can with the resources they have in that moment. Now, that's not to say that what they're doing is right. However, when you are in lower states, you just don't have access to the resources that you would when you're just vibing at a higher level of frequency or consciousness. So this all comes down to programming.
Yeah.
Right? Like right now, like our computers, they have an operating system. And every time, the new operating system comes in, we do an install, update the operating system. The first thing the update does is get rid of the viruses and the bugs so that it doesn't affect the new operating system. That's what timeline therapy is. It gets rid of the viruses and the bugs so that we can up level our neurology. So our inner 6-year-old is not running our life still, because that's what's happening. Our inner 6-year-old is running our life. And it's no fault of their own. That's what I want people to understand, is that, there's no self-judgment, or, people love to have the self-flagellation. There is nothing there. You don't know what you don't know. And all the programs that were given to you were given by somebody else. They're not yours. And the only one that can have access to that and change it, though, is you, especially as an adult, right? Children, obviously not, because they're still in that unconscious. So what it comes down to is that your unconscious mind is running the programs that it knows. So if you want something different, how can you get something different if the neurology that you have right now only is allowing you to have what you have in your reality? You literally need to level up your neurology in order to level up in your life, right? It's that definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. No, you need to update the software. And that's what timeline therapy does when it's creating space. So when it comes to trauma, and this was really big for me, because as a police officer, we are mandated to go to therapy, right? We need to go talk about our problems. And what now I know is that nothing changes at a conscious level. So if I'm aware that, that event really bothered me, if I think about it, guess what? I just deepen the neurology. Mm. I actually have to get into the same theta brainwave, in those trance brainwaves, in order to reprogram that thought process. Now, most people and a lot of therapy out there say, well, the only way to change it is to talk about it, so it shifts. And the analogy I use for that, because I love analogies, because this is how my brain understands it, is like, say I broke my arm, and then I go to the doctor or the psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist, whoever you go to, and say, hey, you know what? I broke my arm. It's healed, but it still hurts a little. What therapy does is it says, let's break your arm again and see if it heals better this time. Really, because that's what's happening. You're going back and really visiting that trauma again. And as you know, the unconscious mind already knows what happened. What happened in that whatever traumatic incident it was, the unconscious mind couldn't upload the learnings because it was just trying to keep you alive in that moment. Yeah. And that's what PTSD is, right? Like when you're out in the field, soldiers don't get stressed out. They have to go. Same with police officers. We're out there, we're going against our nature and going into the face of danger. And then we don't process what happened because we've got to go to the next call and the next call and the next call. And that's why a lot of police officers die of heart attacks as soon as they retire. Because now all of a sudden, all that trauma has come up and their body just can't manage it.
Oh, wow.
And when people come back and have that PTSD, that is a trigger, the unconscious mind saying to your conscious mind, hey, do you remember that incident that happened? Can we just resolve this and make sense of it? Because we couldn't do it in that moment. Mm-hmm. And what I love about timeline therapy is it doesn't deal with all of them individually. It goes to the root cause. Because once we can heal the root cause, the rest of it all unravels. And that's why it's so fast. Because we're not working backwards. We're like, no, let's just go to the root cause. The first time you felt anger, the first time you felt fear, sadness, hurt, guilt, rage, shame, that first time, the root cause, once we can heal that, upload the learnings and release it, the rest of it all unravels and people have now this space, this quiet. Because now the unconscious mind says, okay, good. We learned what we needed to learn. Now we can move forward. And then once you have that space, guess what? Now the universe can bring these resources for you to move forward. And it's not as scary because that same programming is not running up there anymore. And that's why
That
we do
is
the
so,
neurolinguistic programming.
yeah. It's so huge, and I hope people really download this and get a grasp on this. And I find that when I'm doing timeline therapy with my clients, sometimes they remember stuff and understand stuff also at a conscious level. And
Mhm.
sometimes they like, I didn't, there was nothing specific, although the emotions came up. They were there and they feel totally different afterwards. So they like the learning happens at an unconscious level, and it's not
Oh
like they
yeah.
have to have a it's not like we're programmed to understand learning as, okay, we go to school, we read this text, and now we've learned. And this is it's different. Can you talk a little bit around how the learning works
Yeah.
and why the learning, again, like just bring it home, why is the learning so important when we're talking about change?
Well, learning on its own does nothing. And as you know, all learning, all behavior, and all change happens at an unconscious level in that order. What most people do is try to learn consciously and they're using willpower, and willpower won't last. That's why the gyms are always so busy in the beginning of the year in January, and by week 3 no one's there anymore because their willpower ran out.
Yeah.
Right, and there's still some programming running that, oh, I'm not going to go to the gym, what's the point, all whatever their negative self-talk is. So because all learning, all behavior, all change happen at an unconscious level, guess what, you have to be at an unconscious level in order for that to happen, because you can't be consciously unconscious at the same time. And that's why you need to be in these types of forms of trance, in those theta brainwaves, in order for that change to occur, in order for the rewiring to happen, in order for those new neural pathways to actually get created. And what most people do is they realize that, or this is what people do. They either learn, and they don't experience, or they go to an experience, have something done to them. I'm going to just go get some Reiki. I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to go get some sound healing. I'm going to go do this. Or I'm going to, it's like that do to process. I'm just going to go get something done to me. No. You need to learn, then you need to experience it. And as you know, that Vesica Pisces, that wisdom of, the doorway to God, that's where that wisdom happens. That's where that change happens. There has to be both levels, which is why these courses that we teach are that. You're learning the theory, why this works, then you're experiencing it so that now your neurology can understand what you actually learned academically. So there has to be the academic and the experiential, and the connection of it. That's where that change happens. Mm-hmm. That's where the learning, which is the academic, the behavior, which is experiential, because you actually have to do something, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I use the analogy of, like, that's why I call myself a brain trainer. I'm like the personal trainer for your brain. I can teach you how to do a bicep curl. You have to go to the gym yourself to actually do the bicep curl in order for your muscle to grow. Now, you don't just go to the gym once and be like, okay, good, I'm healthy for life, I never have to go again. This is a lifestyle. And so you have to learn, and your body actually has to experience it and take action in the way that you want to go in order for that neurology to sink in and that become your new level of being. Whereas most people, like, they just do it for a little bit and they're like, okay, well, they just go to a workshop and nothing changes in their life.
Yeah.
Because they haven't made any changes. They haven't taken any action. Their behavior is still the same. So that's the power of why we work with the unconscious mind, is because that's the 90% of your brain. And I tell people, do you want to just stay with the 10%, or maybe even just 5%, because we don't even use the full 10%? Or do you want to work it with the 90%? Because it is way smarter, it is way faster, it is way more knowledgeable, and has access to way more resources.
So huge and so interesting. And I think this concept is still so new in Norway. I don't know of any other coaches working with timeline therapy yet in Norway. We have to change that because it's
you are.
so efficient. Yeah. So I'm doing my best to spread the knowledge and spread the word and get more people, practicing these techniques, because it's so powerful.
It is. And in the biggest challenge I find when I'm sharing this work with people is, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And when people are trying to consciously think of what it is, they can't. No. Because most people have never worked with their unconscious mind. And it's so something people try to grasp, oh, well, it's just another course. It's just this. Like, we have not had a single person go through our courses that hasn't completely shifted their life and haven't changed. And this is why, as a master practitioner, we can guarantee our results. And we're the only coaches in the world that can guarantee our results in writing because we're dealing with behavior and neurology.
Yeah.
That's why. People just have to make the commitment to actually want to move forward in it. They have to go deep. It's like deep, deep inner work. And when I tell people, I'm like, if you're not going to do it for yourself, if you're a mom or a parent, do it for your children. Because when you heal the trauma that way, guess what? You heal it that way. Because if I don't heal my trauma, guess what? Who's going to take it? My children. Then they're going to deal with it in their lifetime. And if they don't deal with it, that's why then it's going to go to their children. It's no coincidence that it's happening now and we're having this conversation now, is because there's this shift happening in this consciousness where people are like, there's got to be more. And these, what we call light workers, are now coming back online. The people that are like, there's more to my life. I feel it. We're going through life asleep. We have forgotten who we are, because everybody has been given gifts. Everybody has been given wisdom. Everybody has this level of magnificence in them that they have just forgotten because of all this crap that's been put on top. And our job is to just uncover it and literally get out of our own way. Think of this analogy. As you can tell, I love analogies. So I have this snow globe, right? So I was trying to read the instructions on the snow globe here, and I couldn't because the sparkles were all over the place. The analogy is, if you can actually just let it sit for a moment, then the messaging comes through. Just get out of your own way.
Wow, that's nice.
This is what the thought process is. We're so up in our thoughts that if we can just quiet that mind, the wisdom will come through, because it's there. It's innate wisdom. We don't actually have to go out and actually find wisdom. It's actually already all there. Sure, we might need to add some skills and things and stuff here, but the actual wisdom of who we are and what we are meant to do and what our mission is in this life is there. It's just a matter of accessing it, which is why this work is so powerful, because it's like you're getting your conscious and your unconscious in rapport with each other. So they're playing for the same team, because once they are, guess what? Then you have access to your higher self, where all your blueprint for your success is. And that's what we're trying to access. Not trying. That's what we are doing.
Yay. And I agree with you, Billie. I think there's a shift happening. The more and more people who are aware and who understand that there is something more, and that there's endless possibilities, really.
Literally, possibilities are infinite.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe how much my life has changed in a year.
On what levels has your life changed? I mean, you're a single mom and you run your own business. I mean, I know a lot of the listeners here have kids. They want to start their own business. Like, how do you, what's the magic?
The magic is literally this: getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
Really, that's all it is.
Okay.
Because I was blocking myself. For the longest time, I was like, oh, because of this happened, because of that, I can't be successful. I can't do this. I can't do that. And, literally, like, within 6 months, I won this Freedom Fighter Award. Wow. Because I became financially free in 6 months, because I just got out of my own way. And I just decided to take control of my own life and not let somebody else have control over it.
What were the biggest, limiting decisions, stuff you had to, move out of the way that was keeping you back?
For me, it was worthiness, because growing up in an traditional East Indian family with 2 brothers, I was always told I couldn't do stuff because I was a girl.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of powerless feelings. I felt like I was less than, and I just unconsciously sabotaged everything I used to do, because that program was running that, Billie, you're not smart enough. Billie, you're not good enough. You're not worthy of this. Stay in your lane. Stay where you're meant to be. Speak when spoken to, that whole concept. And then when I realized, actually, I don't need to be part of this family, because in this family, my light was being dimmed, and I had to make some hard choices, right? And this is a lot of, again, why people go back to the pain, because they don't want to make those difficult choices. They don't want to cut things off. And I had to make a very difficult choice to cut my entire family off. Wow. Because I couldn't grow. And that's what we talk about boundaries, is that boundaries are not about keeping other people out. Boundaries are about having a safe space for you to grow and evolve. And I couldn't do it. And yeah, it took years. Now I'm like, man, I wish I knew this stuff before, because it wouldn't have taken years. I would have been able to get over it. Now I've just seen how I've released the anger. I've released the resentment. I've released all those feelings of of hate. I don't have any of those feelings because now I know if they didn't do those things, I wouldn't have learned the things I needed to learn.
Mm.
And that's how I look at things. And I actually look at it from more compassion. And I honestly can say I understand what true forgiveness is. And this was why betrayal was always the theme of my life, was because wasn't forgiving people. I was blaming people. And that was keeping me stuck on victim island. And when I let that go and just understood that I am in charge of my reality, nobody else. And where there's a will, there's a way. And when the universe sees you taking action, like it is so beautiful to watch how the universe has your back when you let it have your back and that you trust it. And there is a level of trust. And there were some scary times. And again, a lot of people, when the scary times happen, they turn away, and I kept going, right? It's like the storm. The quickest way through the storm is to go through it as opposed to around it or run away from it or try to wait for it to go away. So now when something happens, I just go straight through it and be like, okay, I'm going to learn some lessons here. I'm here for it. And I'm not scared of it anymore. Whereas before I lived in a lot of fear. And fear is one of the most debilitating emotions. Doubt is one of the most debilitating emotions. And if you can clear that with timeline therapy, like in one session, right? This doesn't take, as you know, it doesn't take years, it doesn't take weeks, it takes minutes for you to clear that. And then you do that every month and you just keep yourself clear. And now when life comes, nothing knocks me off my feet. I feel like I don't know if I can swear, but I feel like I'm unfuckable with.
I love it.
A curse word, but that's how I feel. Like nothing can throw me off my game now.
Wow.
Because I know whatever's coming is here to teach me something. And so I look for it. I'm like, what am I supposed to learn here? And when you have a community, and this is another big part of it, is now with, this team-like community that we're creating, I know that there's other people that if something knocks me over, that I can reach out and then they can help lift me back up and change my perspective.
Yeah.
And that's that interdependence thing, right? We're not in it alone. And that's where that was another big shift. I was like, screw the world. I'm going to do it all by myself.
Oh, yes.
And now
I know all about that.
Yes. And I'm okay for asking for help now. Whereas I had a hard time receiving, and a lot of women, a lot of moms have a hard time receiving. And now that's shifted because now I know, being a single mom, I can reach out for help. And it's okay. Doesn't make me a bad mom. And now being a kick-ass, badass businesswoman, that was a big struggle. Well, if I want to be a businesswoman, then it means I can't be a good mom. Well, no, as you know, with parts integration, bring those parts together. Yeah. I can be a good mom and a big kick-ass businesswoman at the same time. And guess what? Now my children are seeing that their mom can stand on her own 2 feet and that women are powerful. And I love showing it not just to my daughter, but to my son too. That you don't need a man. I'm not knocking men. I'm just saying that they have seen their mom stand up on their own 2 feet. And that is also showing them that, what's possible as well.
Oh, that's huge. That means your daughter has a great role model, and your son, whenever he finds a wife, if he does, then he will make space for her to stand on her own feet. Like, yeah.
Like such a difference from the world I grew up in.
Oh, that is so huge. Yeah. And I know you told me a little bit about your background, and, can I say all people? Like most people struggle with worthiness and all those things. And I would suspect that coming from the cultural background that you come from, that there's an even greater level to that because the whole culture is really telling you that you're a girl, you can't do this and that, and just keeping you down. So whole different level. And Billie, before we log off, I just really wanted to dive into the one last topic here, which is fear. And the people listening, they you said that you were a police officer, and that is it's tough. You need to go into scary situations. And okay, so yeah, you were a police officer, and then still there was a lot of fear. And obviously there's different fears and levels of fear. And I'm like, there's the thing I'm lingering around is like all the fear that is within people. Where does it come from? And why is there so much fear? And tell me a little bit about the fears you got rid of when you stepped into the new powerful version of yourself. That was a big question, I know.
I know. Yeah.
Just
I'll answer it
randomly.
very simply. I could talk for hours on this
Yeah.
topic. But all I'm going to say to that, Anakin, is that it's all a thought process. It's all a
Mm,
thought.
mm,
It is nothing more. Fear is nothing more than a thought of something that might happen.
yeah.
And just like you can think of the horror show, you have a choice to think of the love story. And if you can clear some of the unresolved emotions, which fear is one of them, it just allows that love story to naturally come out. And that's why, like, my mission is to get timeline therapy out in the world, because if majority of the population had one timeline therapy session, it would be a whole different world out there. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my mission. And
I
hopefully
think
now we
we
can
share.
share it and spread it into Norway.
Yeah, yes, let's do that.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I know that you need to log off, and maybe we can invite you back someday and
Okay.
dig into your brilliant mind and all these exciting topics, and yeah, spread the word even more.
By all means, I would love to. And I could always come back and share some really cool tips and tricks and techniques for some people to just, manage their state.
Nice.
That literally can happen at in a moment's notice, as you've experienced. So power of
Very,
mind is
very
very,
cool.
very powerful. Thank you for
Yay!
having me. It was so fun. And yeah, I will come back anytime you invite me.
Okay, so quickly before you log off, where can people follow you, find more information about your
Yeah, I'm
services?
I'm on the socials. Instagram, my company is called Go Mindspire. So Instagram is go.mindspire, Mindspire. My website, gomindspire.com, LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, I'm,
All over
I'm
the place.
anywhere and everywhere. And yeah, if anybody's interested, we are starting a new cohort in January to do up to the master level, because Melissa and I are teaching the master level as well. So if people are interested in learning how to do these tools and techniques, because my mantra is I want to teach you how to fish so you can eat for life, as opposed to give you a fish so you can just eat for a day.
Yeah.
And so I always encourage people to learn the tools and techniques, because I honestly consider these life skills. It's like swimming. You don't need them every day, but that'll save your life when you need it. And that's why I think they're life skills. So I think everybody should learn these tools.
If this was valuable to you, I'm sure that you're going to like this episode too.